Good morning everyone, Jason here, and today we are going to talk about character design. Now, art is not like math, and there is no one formula for a given problem. In fact, there are multiple solutions. I think that's the beauty of art. However, it's important to understand the typical body shape for different character stereotypes when you're talking about character designs. So I've actually created this series of rough sketches as a basic guideline for a beginner who has never done character design to sort of understand what you need to do when you first start designing your characters. I've made this available in the link below in the video description, so you can download and give it a try. The first body type we have over here is the kid hero. It's about 3 to 5 heads tall. That's typically the proportion of a toddler. And one thing to note is that the bigger you make the head to be, the head and the eyes, the cuter the character will end up looking. So an example of a character that uses this proportion will be Mario and Mickey Mouse. The next example will be the proportion of a teenage hero that's about 5 to 7 heads tall. This is the typical proportion you will find for a game protagonist, and that's because it sort of echoes the core target audience for most games. Most games target teenagers, so they like to see themselves being portrayed in the game. And therefore, you have a teenage hero proportion like this. An example of a character that has this proportion would be both Sora from Kingdom Hearts and Link from The Legend of Zelda. Moving along, we have the adult hero or the superhero. He or she is about 8 to 10 heads tall. Superhero may go up to 11 heads tall. In contrast with the kid hero, the smaller the head of the adult hero, the bigger the character will look. Now, it's important to note that the male superhero has this triangular shape, this inverted triangular shape that goes from the shoulder to the groin over here. So it's important to take note of that when you are creating a male hero character. Another thing to add is that by arcing the spine backwards, you will give this character a more heroic pose. Well, notice how I arc the spine backwards so that the character's shoulders are tucked behind. Gives it a more confident posture. So again, the typical characters you will find having this proportions will be your standard comic book heroes, like Captain America. Next up, we have the femme fatale character stereotype. Usually it's a more sexy character, and take note over here of her contrapposto posture. It's an old master technique where the angles of the shoulder are opposite to the angle of the hips. So the more you contrast this, the more you will bring out the curves of the body, because the posture itself is kind of twisted. And one thing to note too is that boobs are seriously overrated. If you want to make the character look much more feminine, the correct way is to increase the size of the hips. Certain femme fatale characters have unusually long legs. So again, this is just a template. If you want to, you can always increase the length of the legs. An example of a femme fatale character will be Widowmaker from Overwatch. The next proportion we'll look at is that of the Goofy character. Now the name is derived from Mickey Mouse's friend, Goofy. And the signature look of the Goofy character is that the spine is arched forward. So in contrast with the superhero where it's kind of up backwards, the spine of the Goofy character is arched forward, giving this character a hunchback appearance. So as you can see, even from this silhouette, this character can be a funny character, or it can also be a scheming, evil character. So an example of a Goofy stereotype would be the Goofy character from Disney and Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. For villains, you will immediately notice the sharp triangular shape that kind of encapsulates the whole silhouette. Humans have since young been primed to identify sharp objects as a sign of danger, so having the whole character being a sharp triangle really informs the character from the get-go that, you know, this guy or this gal is evil. He means business. So an example of the villain proportion would be Jafar from Aladdin and Darth Vader from Star Wars. And in fact, as you can see from this pixelated image of this Darth Vader toy, that the entire character design is tapered towards the top, forming a triangle. Next, we have the squishy and cuddly chubby character. Now, as you can see from this sketch over here, the character looks extremely friendly. It's probably the main character's best friend. Yeah, examples of this particular character type would include Baymax from, what's the name of the movie called, Kid Hero 6 or something like that. And of course, Knuckles, not Knuckles, Kid Thief from Final Fantasy VII. And lastly, we have the Pang character. As you can see over here in this sketch, everything about the character is very blocky, from the head to the arms, the body, the feet. Everything about this character is very blocky. It's like a cube of hard, solid wood. And also notice that the proportions of the arms and hands are way longer than that of the leg and feet, almost like a gorilla. So an example of such a character would be Wreck-It Ralph and Hagrid from Harry Potter. And if you look at this particular character, Wreck-It Ralph, you will notice that even his hands, the shape of his fingers are in a block form. Alright, so moving along to the demo portion of this video, where I'll be sketching over this set of templates that I've created. Now, the characters that I'm designing will be centered around the samurai theme with no other specifications, so I'm free to explore how I want this samurai character to look. And over here I'm just using the proportion as a guideline. I'm still playing around with the pose to show the character and personality of this particular design. This being the first design that I'm doing, sticking to the typical samurai costume. One of the reasons why we are doing multiple designs is because sometimes the solution that you come up with might look too typical or too out there, too unique for the game's good. So sometimes you want to really experiment and explore the different styles and see which one would suit your game more. Concept art is basically an exploration for different visual solutions to the same problem. I try to keep the concept, the rough sketch, to be rather simple at this point of time. That's not necessary to over detail it right now, because after all, 7 of these ideas will be rejected. So here I am flipping the canvas horizontally to check the balance of the character, to check the design of the character when it's flipped, just to make sure that he looks good. So moving along to the goofy character, jumping around the canvas a little bit. For this particular character design, I'm going with the Tengu theme. So he's wearing this Tengu mask, and the mask itself makes him look kind of like a Joker-esque character, a bit of a sinister, up to no good person. And for me, it's always nice to sort of observe from your environment, especially if you're traveling overseas, to take a look at other people's culture and kind of bring that into your own design. For example, I recently just went to Japan, so for this particular character design exercise, I drew a lot of inspiration from the things I see. For this particular character, he is carrying a dagger that he uses as a secret weapon to sneak attack the opponent. So it's nice to come up with storylines for the character as you doodle. It adds a lot of flavor to the design that you are currently making. So moving along, I am doing the villain next. I think I spent the most time on this particular character, and I think I kind of went a little bit overboard with the details. As I mentioned earlier, there's really no need to embellish so much details at this stage, because most of the designs that you'll be doing will be rejected anyways, or you'll be modified even further. And usually, as compared to the details, the silhouette and the pose, it's way more important to bring across the idea of the character. So as you can see, when I'm drawing, I'm constantly adjusting the drawing to make sure that the shape is right. Making the figure a little bit bigger, a bit more imposing. All these transformation tools can be accessed by clicking Ctrl T. Of course, I'm using the lasso tool to isolate each section of the drawing so that I don't transform the whole drawing at one go. As for the design of the details itself, for me, I do a lot of research. Prior to this, I go to Google Images to find how typical samurai armor works, and it's also from my own visual library, from my experience designing characters like this. For example, how adding a skull of an animal, or in this case a mythical dragon, will make the character look a little bit more evil. Yeah, making the villain hold two swords. Double wielding is cool. But I'm not particularly happy with how the hand looks. The left hand especially. And as you can see, I am using the sword to form that triangular shape, as I mentioned earlier. Adding a little bit more details at the back, again to accentuate the triangular silhouette of the character. Yeah, still not super happy with the shape of the hand, but I think I would just move on because spend too much time on this particular character. So next up, I'll do something fun and simple, just to relax from the character just now. I'm doing the kid hero. So the design for this particular character is rather simple. In fact, I think I took most of the costume from an image I was able to find online. But the key thing about this particular design is the look on the character's face. I make him look a bit more confident with that smile. yeah, it's kind of like a story kind of thing. Yeah, he's confident despite his age, or maybe it's because of his age. He hasn't seen the harsh realities of life. That's why he's smiling. Moving on to the teenage hero, I wanted to do a female character for a change. And since she's a kid, I'm trying to keep it as PG as possible. So she's wearing actual clothes. Just adjusting the hair over here. Once this is done, most likely we will finalize on one character, and you can tell me in the comment section below which character you like the most, and we will move forward and iterate on the design. Basically, for example, if this particular character is chosen, we will work on the different hairstyles, the different weapon design, etc. So next we are drawing the adult hero. The hairstyle for this particular design is inspired by Haomaru from Samurai Showdown, an old SNK fighting game. Not sure if you guys have heard of it. So I'm trying to make this particular design a little bit more asymmetrical. In the previous view, it looks quite symmetrical, so I'm trying to break that. I realized that the belt that I was giving the character didn't really work, so I removed it. Lastly, I'm adding a dragon tattoo, kind of inspired by Hanzo from Overwatch, and adding a little bit of magical spell effect on his left hand. He's a hero after all. It knows a little bit of magic. So for the femme fatale character stereotype, I'm aiming for something a little bit more sexy, or the character is wearing something a little bit more revealing. And seriously, it doesn't really quite make sense. People don't wear such clothes into battle, but sometimes you need to exercise a little bit of creative license when it comes to designing characters. If everything is 100% based on reality, then it's kind of boring. So okay, moving on to the last character that I'm designing, the chubby samurai. I'm thinking we're here for a change. I want to do something more robotic, more sci-fi. Creating a fat robot over here. Again, just to add some variety to the designs. For this particular exercise, there is no specifications besides the fact that it needs to be a samurai. It could literally be anything else in terms of the design. So the key thing is the character should be holding a long sword, a long katana, and the armor or the clothing that the character is wearing should look somewhat Japanese, and somewhat like a samurai armor. So over here I'm making the character wear a mechanical diaper, sort of. Just hiding the other character because it's taking up a little bit of space. Making the katana a lightning katana just because adding a little bit of flavor to the character. So I'm pretty much done, just repositioning the sketch for a better layout. So yeah, tell me what you think. Which samurai sketch do you like the most? Comment below and we will move on to coloring the character next week.